does it. Now look, this has to stop. I know it's Monday again, but we've already done this. We don't have to do it again. Do you understand? Well, do you? I hate Mondays!
This review has been made possible by GatorFreaks thanks to its great support on Ko-fi. As of this writing, I'm currently taking a break from accepting new review requests, but be on the lookout for whenever that commission option opens back up. After reviewing 2 obscure cartoons back to back that I'm personally acquainted with, it's time to once again leave my comfort zone and talk about a series that I'm not awfully familiar with. Pet Alien. Often forgotten about in the pool of primitive-looking CGI comedies from back in the day, you may remember the show coming up on Cartoon Network back in 2005 as one of those low-priority acquired programs that would air in the morning as filler. But based on what this AWN article has to say about the show's development, Pet Alien was anything but a low priority for its creator, Jeff Muncy, who didn't just saw this concept as a little TV series, it was just one part of a bigger merchandising master plan. Yes, while the Pet Alien animated series is barely remembered by anyone today, I bet even fewer even knew that it was a fairly profitable toy line between 1992 and 2003, with its earliest cartoon tie-in being a partially lost 2D webtoon. The CGI series came about after the folks at Mike Young Productions grew attached to Jeff's concept and agreed to turn it into the Tex Avery style comedy we got after Disney's request to make Pet Alien a Playhouse Disney show for preschoolers didn't work out. My own relationship with Pet Alien prior to this review was minimal at best. It was one of those obscure cartoons where I'm aware of its existence for years, but I never fully watched an episode of it until now. A retrospective on the series by one of my favorite small-name commentary YouTubers, Bracket Neutron, was where I got the biggest taste of what Pet Alien is like before checking an episode out for myself. Unfortunately for him, the episode I was commissioned to review is one that he considered a dud. But let us see which opinion I'll conclude with as someone who isn't an expert on Pet Alien. This is The Day That Wouldn't End. Not to be confused with The Day the Earth Blew Up, of course. Before I get into the episode itself, however, I forgot to summarize what Pet Alien is actually about. Its simple premise revolves around an average boy named Tommy Cadle, whose life becomes either more exciting or more frustrating since the crash landing of 5 aliens from the planet Conforma, who now reside with him in his lighthouse, and hijinks ensue from there. Out of the 2 French cartoons I have been binge-watching recently, Pet Alien is most similar to Space Goofs, a beautifully animated zany show that I wish I watched many years sooner, and I have former SpongeBob board artist Jennifer Gleason to thank for inspiring me to give it a try. Heck, it too features Charlie Adler voicing a funny green alien who speaks with the typical expressive inflections we all love Charlie Adler for. But is Pet Alien on par with Space Goofs, all things considered? Let's find out. Written by the show's usual pair of writers, Dan Danko and Tom K. Mason, alongside veteran cartoon writer Doug Molitor, The Day That Wouldn't End is one of those Groundhog Day style plots where a character is repeatedly reset in time in order to live through an improved version of their crummy day, only to experience the same crummy results on a seemingly endless loop. I hardly ever saw the Bill Murray movie as of yet, but I definitely thought about the Fairly Odd Parents episode Deja Vu and my personal favorite Angry Beavers episode same time last week when I was watching this Pet Alien segment. Heck, that one even shares a writer with Pet Alien. Here, Tommy is hating Mondays for more legitimate reasons than a certain lazy cat. The only day of the week he looks forward to, aside from Saturday, is Tuesday because that's when he's given his allowance. But this Monday is a special kind of bad for Tommy. He's tripping in his bedroom, getting chased by seagulls, getting his head trapped in a giant fist, and sticking up his entire classroom with said fist. Oh, and his lighthouse self-destructs. Overall, this has been the worst day of his life. Or at least, the worst day of his life so far. Dinko, the green alien who looks like a cross between Yoshi and Petrie with just a hint of Gonzo, comes up with the wise idea to reset Tommy's Monday by smashing him with a hammer! God, how many Emperor's New Groove references I've made in these reviews at this point. As you'd expect from a Groundhog Day story like this, Tommy's Monday has been reset thanks to the Conforma do-over, but he still goes through the same crap all over again and finds little to no success in counteracting his bad luck before it literally hits him in the face once more. Dinko's heart is in the right place though. He wants to make sure his human friend gets through his Monday with no scrapes or scratches or fist odors, so that he'll be alright when Tuesday arrives in order to get his allowance. But out of all the inconveniences Tommy experienced during this painful cycle, pushing the self-destruction button invented by Dinko is the one you'd think would be the easiest to avoid. But no, during the repeat, an Exit's Gumpers couldn't resist rushing down to have his go at pushing it, then Dinko creates a self-destruct lever instead of a button. Okay, one more Emperor's New Groove reference.
Why do we even have that lever?
And funniest of all,
No self-destruct button this time, right?
Correct.
No self-destruct lever?
Also correct.
What about... Damn it!
yeah, Dinko created absolutely nothing at that time, but the universe is just not having it with Tommy for some reason. Even when he decides to stay in bed all day, up until the part with Dinko's invention, all the build up to Tommy's allowance was proven pointless because his mom isn't giving it to him this week since he skipped school. Thus, it all ended up being a Shaggy Dog story. And not even the fact that Dinko's latest self-destruct button was now aimed at the house of Tommy's rival Granville, who wasn't even directly antagonizing him in this episode, could make up for his lack of cash. Compare this negative ending to the one in the aforementioned Angry Beavers episode when Degget spoils the conclusion to the movie that Norbert was watching at that very moment, waiting him to get bopped into the dawn of time. At least Degget actually likes this absurd ending because it gives him the chance to annoy his brother for many years. So with the day that wouldn't end being my introductory sample of Pet Alien as a series, it wasn't a bad choice to start myself off with. Now I do get what Bracket Neutron was saying in his own review of the show about this episode being frustratingly redundant. While redundancy is to be expected in a storyline like this, the Pet Alien episode does pale in comparison to the two Nickelodeon segments I referenced earlier. I'll get into my theory as to why that is in a moment, but I will admit that The Day That Wouldn't End is generally funny in its own right. A big reason why the episode's redundant nature was palatable is because of the little ways it would mix up how each unfortunate outcome is executed. Some variants are funnier than others. For instance, there was some spice missing in the part where Tommy tries to talk the seagulls out of chasing him for a third time, only for the birds to resume their nuisance behavior without a care. A stronger build-up to that punchline could have helped a lot. On the other hand, like I said earlier, it was hilarious when a random explosion perfectly cut Dinko and Tommy's conversation short, despite the former not creating anything that time. In addition, Gumpers inadvertently hitting Tommy's face with the door was good, and when Tommy was absent from school near the end,
Hey, I don't smell anything.
Oh, that's...
yeah, no fist was in sight that time, but a random kid just had to fart in the classroom. By the way, I might as well bring up this little weirdo here, Gabby, who is your average stalker girl with a creepy crush on the main protagonist, similar to 2D, Panini, and Kirsten. While everyone else in the class hates the fish smell Tommy brought in, Gabby thinks it's some sort of expensive cologne. It's cute enough. But as solid as The Day That Wouldn't End is on its own merits, I think a primary reason why it felt less satisfactory than Deja Vu or Same Time Last Week may have to do with the overall lower budget nature of Pet Alien as a whole. Remember when I said that Jeff Muncy aimed to make the animated adaptation of his toy line look like a Tex Avery cartoon? Well, he certainly succeeded, if the Tex Avery cartoon he was referring to was Quickie Kawawa. Hey, it's arguably less insulting than comparing it to the wacky world of Tex Avery, ain't it? What I'm getting at is the animation quality is the elephant in the room regarding Pet Alien's low production value. Perhaps more so than the fact that it only had 4 voice actors throughout its entire 52 episode run. And it hardly has to do with the time period in which it was made, because even Jimmy Neutron had a stronger sense of appeal with its otherwise primitive CGI. I mean, it's not on Monster by Mistake or Butt Ugly Martian level levels of ugly, but I bet if Pet Alien had a smoother frame rate and cleaner rendering, it would look even more charming. And you know what? It's not so bad. I am actually someone who can embrace the charm of wonkier CGI, as seen in classic VeggieTales or Pixar's pre-Toy Story output. Crest Communications in India, who also provided the animation for fellow Mike Young production Jakers The Adventures of Piggly Winks, did the best they could with their limited resources. While I'm still on the topic of Pet Aliens animation, I must give a shout out to a series crew member whose name you might be familiar with, Eric Robles. Yes, the same man who'd go on to create his own goofball CGI comedy, Fanboy and Chum Chum. During the earlier days of his career, Eric worked as a character designer on traditionally animated shows like Toonsylvania, Maya and Miguel, The X's, and both of Maxwell Adams's cartoons. On Pet Alien, he was essentially the Jerry Richardson of the production team, taking Jeff Muncy's three-dimensional alien designs originally made for the toy line and tweaking them up to be more animation friendly. Also, you can sense the Fanboy and Chum Chum DNA in the designs of the human characters like Tommy, Gabby, Granville, and Old Man Bitters. With their offbeat proportions, they look as otherworldly as Dinko and the other Conforma natives. On that note, I don't blame Bracket Neutron for his hyperfixation on Dinko, because he is the best in terms of design as well as personality. Among the other recognizable names behind this series, I gotta point out that this is the third time after Larry Boy The Cartoon Adventures and Time Squad where I'm reviewing a show featuring storyboard work from future Norm of the North director Trevor Wall. That movie may look even uglier than Pet Alien, but it was nice knowing that Trevor stuck with the Mike Young Productions family even when it got relaunched as Splash Entertainment. Moving on to the other side of Pet Alien's low budget, having a single quartet of voice actors. It's not a terrible thing whatsoever, especially when you got names who are as versatile as these ones. In addition to the aforementioned Charlie Adler, who is obviously no stranger to voicing multiple major characters in one cartoon, the other three cast members include Wacko Warder himself, Jess Harnell, who's also the show's voice director, Candy Milo doing every single female voice, and Charlie Slaughter in the lead role as Tommy. Now, normal people, i.e. those who aren't animation geeks, may best remember seeing him in the Dick Van Dyke series Diagnosis Murder, but an animation geek like myself knows him better for voicing deep-cut characters like Tony in the brilliant Evil Con Carne bottle episode Gridlocked and Loaded, and Dwight in the Very Odd Parents episode Listen Well. The similarities between Tommy and those two can be heard, and yet my mind wasn't distracted when I was watching The Day That Wouldn't End, where I was like, yo, it's Tony!
The only good thing about Monday is that it's one day closer to Tuesday. That plan is wicked awesome, sir. Ah! It's our worst fears! They want my blubber!
One more thing about the production I gotta mention is the music, which was done by Michael Tavera, who composed scores for various animated fan favorites, including my earlier review subject Time Squad. Thanks to GatorFreaks, I have been using a few of Michael's music cues in my reviews ever since the first Captain Flamingo one. In fact, at least two of them were spotted in this Pet Alien episode I've discussed today. I especially love the dramatic cue used for the title card to The Day That Wouldn't End, which actually made its earliest appearance in a segment of Toonsylvania. So, based on what I checked out from this series, Pet Alien is a perfectly solid CGI comedy, and The Day That Wouldn't End is a funny take on the Groundhog Day plot without needing to be written as too high concept. But at the end of the day, I'm more in favor of Space Goofs being my favorite French cartoon about 5 goofy aliens adjusting to human life on Earth, largely thanks to the hand-drawn animation that better suits the Tex Avery style intentions that Pet Alien was going for. Season 2 is especially entertaining both visually and verbally, even though that was when all of the ex-Ren and Stimpy artists were out of the show. In any case, I thank GatorFreaks for giving me this opportunity to try out the quirky Pet Alien series. To everyone else watching, do you remember this show, and The Day That Wouldn't End specifically? Let me know in the comments. To watch Pet Alien for yourself, It's complicated. It has 4 out-of-print DVD volumes, with Atomic Tommy being the one that contains the episode I reviewed today, and streaming it officially on Prime Video or YouTube doesn't mean you'll get access to all 52 half hours of Pet Alien. But despite almost being lost media, there is enough content from the series to get yourself into it if you please. Also, I'll link you to Bracket Neutron's own review of Pet Alien to give yourself a more in-depth overview on what the show is like before you decide to watch an episode. And as always, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe so I can hit 15,000 sooner, hit the bell, and drop a clock emoji in the comments to confirm that you watched this review until the very end. Thanks for watching and take care!